second coming of Jesus. It is bizarre for most Muslims to know this, but actually many Christians are more pro-Zionist than most Jews. We as Muslims, most of us are ignorant about this. Some of the Christian fundamentalist groups are more pro-Zionist than Jewish groups. And the reason for this is because they believe that when the Holy Land is ready, Jesus Christ will return again. And they want to expedite the process. And no doubt fundamentalist Christians think Jews are misguided, but they think Jews are misguided because they haven't been updated yet. For us, they view us as being not even on the chart of misguidance. We're not even on that chart. We're completely off the charts. Jews are, they lost the plot because they didn't believe in Jesus. That's what they believe. For us, they believe we are not even on the path of guidance. So there's more sympathy to Jews, obviously, because in the end of the day, Jesus was a Jew. He came for the Jews. I mean, they all acknowledge this. There's more familiarity with the Jews, and we are considered to be heathens and barbarians and following a false prophet. That's their view. And the Prime Minister of England, Lloyd George at the time, was an ardent evangelical Christian. And he clearly had pro-Zionist and very Christian tendencies when he wants to conquer Jerusalem and whatnot. You saw yourself, his statements and whatnot. And there's no denying that there's an element of pro-Zionism coming out of a Christian theology. Okay, so this is reason number 3. And again, I don't see any conspiracy here. It's pretty obvious. You believe in something, you're going to do it. The 4th reason given, this is where I say, Allahu A'lam, it's a bit of a conspiracy. I don't know. I'll just say it, and I don't know if it's true or not. There is a theory, you'll find it in a lot of books, but I'm not an expert in this, so I just mention it and I'll leave it at that. That by promising Palestine to the Jews, this was a bribe to certain high-ranking officials in the White House to try to drag America into the war as well. And this is a theory that is given. And they mention some names and whatnot, that this was some type of, promise that America would also get involved. But, Allahu A'lam if this is true or not, but let me say one thing, and this is shocking to many of us, but it's historically true. Mainstream American Judaism was completely opposed to Zionism for the first 40 years of Zionism. Mainstream American Judaism, 1880s, 1890s, it was a European phenomenon. Zionism was a completely European phenomenon. American Jews, by and large, scoffed at the idea of an independent Jewish homeland. They thought this is ridiculous, we're happy where we are, we're acclimatized, we love America. There was no notion, and they did understand it would cause problems and whatnot, and mainstream Jews in America did not support Zionism until basically Hitler and World War II. That's when they felt the need to have an independent Jewish homeland. And this is well documented. This is not some type of theory. This is a known fact that mainstream American Jews were not pro-Zionist. And whatever the reasons might be, eventually these discussions between European Zionists and the British government continued until finally in August 1917, the discussion reaches the British cabinet. Now it's going to become official. Should we vote or not? And very interestingly, this is another interesting point, there was only one Jewish member of cabinet in that entire meeting. There was only one Jewish member. And that Jewish member was the most vocal opponent to the plan of giving Palestine to the Jews. And his name was, you can write this down, Edwin Samuel Montagu, M-O-N-T-A-G-U, Edwin Samuel Montagu. And what he said was, listen to this, and this is the only Jewish member of the cabinet, and he's one of the most vocal opponents to the plan of giving Palestine to the Jews. What he says was, this would cause great alarm in the Muslim world, would create enemies for us when we don't have enemies. So Muslims and Jews were not enemies to one another for the bulk of their history. And this is something that is shocking to modern Muslims and Jews, modern Christians. The fact of the matter, Muslims and Jews got along very well in what is now Palestine, up until the beginnings of Zionism. Muslims and Jews did not have too much problems. And here we have a senior member of the British Parliament who is a Jew saying that I am worried if you're going to do this, you're going to cause tensions between us. You're going to cause problems between us, and you're going to reinforce anti-Semitism and bigotry. Notice this is a Jew speaking out against this, saying if you do this, we're going to get into trouble. from our Muslim, if you like, neighbors and whatnot. And this, more than anything, shows us, dear Muslims, let us not confuse anti-Zionism with anti-Jewishness. We have to be very careful here. Many Muslims confuse the two together. We are anti-Zionist. We are not anti-Jewish. We are anti-Zionist and we criticize Zionism. As for Jews, they are Ahl Kitab. And the Sharia has and always will grant them rights that are known to all of us. And historically speaking, Jews and Muslims always found sympathy and comfort against the Christians in the Crusades and throughout history. Whenever the Christians persecuted the Jews always found safe passage in Muslim lands. This is an undeniable historical reality. And that is why there were large groups of Jews living in Muslim lands up until the creation of Israel. You Arabs know this. Yemeni Jews, Moroccan Jews, Tunisian Jews, Jews around the world. There's a Jewish synagogue in Cairo, which is now empty because of Zionism, right? Jews flourished in Muslim lands. And historically speaking, there was not the type of animosity that exists right now. And unfortunately, in our anger against Zionism, many Muslims have become anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish. And this is a problem. We criticize Zionism. And let me tell you from my own experiences, some of the most vocal and effective critics of Zionism are Jews. I repeat that. Some of the most vocal and effective critics of Zionism. Zionism is political Judaism. Zionism is a type of racism. We have no qualms about this. You are saying that somebody who's a Jew has the right to go to a land that he's never been in for 50 centuries. And he can take over the property and land of somebody who's right there. This is racism and ethnic cleansing in a way. We are opposed to Zionism. We are not opposed to the rights of Jewish people to be Jews. And our religion has always given them and will continue to give them these rights. And here we have in Edwin Montague a very good example of a Jew standing up for the rights of the Palestinians and saying, if you do this, you're going to get us into trouble. Well, obviously, as you know, he was outvoted. And in any case, the opposition was minimal. He was one of a handful. And the cabinet basically allowed this to pass. And immediately, the British Foreign Secretary, Sir Arthur Balfour, eagerly wrote a telegram to Baron Rothschild, if you can show now on the screen. And this is the actual telegram that was sent. This is called the Balfour Declaration. This is called the Balfour Declaration. That is Sir Arthur Balfour. And he wrote a telegraph to Baron Rothschild. You have over here, Dear Lord Rothschild, I have the pleasure. This is the actual Balfour Declaration. Look at the date, November 2nd, 1917. This is the actual telegraph that was sent. Yours, here we go again. Yours, Arthur Balfour. And it says that His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this objective. It being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. This is the Balfour Declaration, dated November 2nd, 1917, and he wrote it to Baron Rothschild. And the Rothschilds, there's a whole bunch of, a whole tangent over here. The Rothschilds were who is Baron Rothschild? Baron Rothschild is the highest ranking, he is a lord, and the lord is like, there is no equivalent in America, but like he's higher than a senator. He's a lord, and he is the highest ranking Jewish, basically member of the British Parliament and royalty. He is a lord in the House of Lords, and he is the highest ranking Jew in England, and so and he's also obviously a member of the World Zionist Congress. And so immediately Sir Arthur Balfour sends him the telegraph. And of course the Rothschilds is a whole different tangent over here. The Rothschilds is, how can I even phrase this? This is a dynasty that has spanned over 350 years. A Jewish banking dynasty that has branches to this day in Austria and England and France and America and Switzerland. And it is the pioneer, one of the pioneers of worldwide banking. And their net worth in today's value, back in the 1800s would literally be in the hundreds of billions. The Rothschild family, there is no other equivalent in all of Europe. They transcended politics. They're so wealthy, they don't care who's in power. These are people that are the bankers and the people of wealth in a number of European lands, and they are still around to this day. One of their members is the founder of that famous Swiss bank. He's worth $100 billion or something. Well, the bank is worth, not him, but I mean, he's the president or whatnot. The family is still active to this day. So he writes the letter to Baron Rothschild, and he basically promises him that, look, you help us out, and you will get your state in Palestine, you will get your Israel. Now, the same land has been promised to three people, basically, right? Well, you can say when the British promised it to themselves, they feel they have the right to give it to the Jews now. So they're promising the Arabs freedom, and they've already negotiated with the French and German that they're going to keep Jordan, and then they've already said a part of Jordan will be given over to, Transjordan will be given over to the Zionists. Now, the Arabs and Muslims once again found out about the Balfour Declaration, because the Balfour Declaration was not top secret, unlike the Sykes-Picot Agreement. The Balfour Declaration was made public, and it was publicized in the newspaper. Once again, the Brits convinced the Arabs that don't worry about it, we'll deal with it when the time comes, and the Arabs basically went along. They fell for it again. That don't worry, we trust you, you guys are going to help us out. And they ignored the Balfour Declaration. And do realize that when all of this began, pre-World War I, only 5% of Palestine were Jews. The Jewish population was less than 5%. And they are being told that you're going to get a state in modern Palestine. I mean, in some cities, Muslims are 5% here in America. Probably in New York, we're more than that. Imagine if we are told, oh, you can get all of New York, don't worry. This is literally the promise that's being made, right? All of New York is yours if you just help us out. Well, how about the rest of the people of New York? All of this, we need to understand, this is what's going to happen now. That's exactly the tensions that are going to come. This is exactly the problem. And these are the three primary agreements that the Brits made, and it is undeniable that these agreements demonstrate the duplicity and the outright hypocrisy of England and the double-crossing role that they played in promising different people different things, and in particular, how they backstabbed the Arabs and the Muslims. Now, we need to start wrapping up what exactly happens. Obviously, Germany eventually is defeated, and Germany basically resigns or surrenders at a very infamous date at 11 a.m. in the 11th day of the 11th month. This is a famous thing that happened. It just so happened 11 a.m. on the 11th of November in the year 1918. This is when World War I officially comes to an end, and there are many results of the end of World War I. We'll summarize some of them. That obviously, first and foremost, there was the loss of life. In some European lands, more than 20% of the male population is gone. Changes the whole dynamics. Second was the famine, because when you don't have men, you're not going to have fields, you're not going to have this. And the famine probably killed at least triple or quadruple the amount that died in the actual war. Tens of millions of people across the globe died as a result of famine. And then when you have famine and you have a lack of sanitation and whatnot, then the third disaster. And this was the Spanish influenza of 1918. And what will make you understand what is the Spanish influenza? The Spanish influenza was the worst plague that man has seen since the Black Death of 1320 or something. It is estimated that up to 5% of the world's population died in the Spanish influenza. The Spanish influenza, it's called the Spanish influenza, but it spanned the globe from America to the Far East. People just fell sick, healthy people, and the demographics were typically between 35 to 55. Healthy people would just start coughing blood, and this was I forgot to mention, this is the original bird flu virus. H1N1, this is the first one. And that's why when the bird flu virus resurrected 3-4 years ago, everybody panicked. Because they didn't have a cure for the Spanish influenza. It just stopped on its own. After a good percentage of the world just basically died. And this was the largest plague that mankind had seen basically since the Black Death. It is estimated that up to 100 million people died in the Spanish influenza of 1918, 1919, 1920. On a personal note, my own great-grandfather also died in 1918 as a young man. My own great-grandfather in 1918 just fell sick, started coughing, and this is in the village of India, right, middle of nowhere, and Spanish influenza, 1918. So that was the third issue that we're going to talk about. So the first was basically the tragedies of the war itself. The second was the famine. Then the third was the Spanish influenza. Obviously, World War I also caused a lot of economic and social reforms that's beyond the scope of this class, but just one nukta or one footnote here, feminism. Feminism. For the first time in human history, the roles of men and women were reassessed. In human history, not Muslim history, it was understood what is the role of a man and the role of a woman. In human history, across the globe, men and women have a certain understanding and relationship. Men are in charge of one thing, women are in charge of another. As Allah says, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى. The man is not like the woman. And it is understood the woman is more of a caretaker, more of a homemaker. This has historically always been the case. Well, 1918 changes all of that. It has to. When 20% of your population that are men are gone, what's going to happen? Women have to go to the workforce. And women are told you have to take, and for the first time, and we have many posters to this day, that you have women, you can do it. You know that poster of a woman with the scarf and the quintessential feminist poster, right? That masculine look with the muscles. You can do it, right? You're going to go and do it. And World War I was the first time when women were asked to leave the sanctity of the house, the peacefulness of the house, and were told, go and work, we need you. Then obviously, when they're going to do this, and World War II made it even bigger, so the first wave of feminism began after World War I, the second wave, not coincidentally, after World War II, and then we are still basically seeing this entire reshifting of men and women. All of this comes about from World War I, but for us, we are interested in the politics, and especially the Middle East and the Ottoman collapse. So